Skype because I'm recording this now. So let me start. I will tell you some interesting things that we are doing with Mr. Simon, and I strongly believe, as I'm sure Eddie does as well, that measuring user behavior is extremely important for businesses because whatever we do is we do for people mostly. But if we don't measure what we do, then we are doing things in the dark and we may waste resources if we do not see how what we do has a real impact on how users perceive our brands, our products. So let me tell you how we are doing these measurements with Mr. Simon. I will have Sergey here, my team member, my engineer team member, helping me with demonstrating some stuff to you guys. So to start with, I will tell you things in this presentation like some principles of web analytics, and it's not information that I found somewhere on Wikipedia, it's my perspective on things. Some context of what we have, what is Mr. Simon as a product, what were our first discoveries when we started analyzing the data. Then we will explain very briefly the architecture of data flow and what is it we are doing in our search for the product market fit for Mr. Simon. And we will show you some experiments that we are doing whenever we try to find this product market fit. We do it in the form of experiments. So let's start with principles in my perspective. What I suggest is you have to track all events that can possibly be tracked. All that tracking information is stored in a database. And then based on that data, you can draw business insights that help you make decisions. And with each decision, you can then go ahead and do another experiment. And then that experiment again is tracked and stored and analyzed. One example of a company, and many companies do that successfully. One good example is Etsy. I have someone working at Etsy. This is why I'm showing this as an example, because we just recently talked about that. They successfully implement this approach whenever they change anything, even slightly, like let's move this button a little bit to the right, from left to the right. Let's measure how it impacts, whether we have more users, more clicks on this button or less with this change. So this is a really successful company, as shown by them having this projected revenue of $2 billion. And it is worth learning from the best. So Mr. Simon does just that. The context of Mr. Simon, what we are is we have developed this web application. You can use it on your desktop device or on your mobile phone in the browser, where you can practice prepare for your job interview. Mr. Simon will be asking you questions and you can answer them and listen to your recordings. We also have a website with a lot of interesting information on it, including blog articles and company pages. Company pages may sound like, hey, what's this about? But this is exactly where most of our experiments happen, and I will tell you why. The main reason is we have quite a heavy traffic on these company pages. It's about 1,000 visits per day we have on these company pages, and the number is growing constantly. So now I will ask Sergey to lead us through these three things. He will show us what we mean by company pages, how they look like, and then we will see what the data tells us, how many visits we have, and how many of those people who visit our pages click the button Start Practicing. So for this, let me show you the Skype window, and Sergey.
All right, thank you. So yeah, So you may already have seen the Mr. Simon page. It looks like this. And if you scroll down, you can see a list of companies. And for each company, we have a page that has like a kind of a similar layout. Yeah, they look about the same, but they have questions and content specifically for that company. We got this data mainly from Glassdoor. Yeah, so yeah, they look like this. And to see the results, we can go to console that Google provides. And what we see here is data of clicks of users who get to those pages from Google search.
Yeah, so maybe let me interfere a little bit. So with the graph that we see here, can you scroll up a little bit? One number I want you guys to take a look at is 1.3 millions, and this is where all of it starts. So these are impressions. When you go to Google search and you enter some search query and you hit search, even before you hit search, no, when you hit search, you get some results. Like here, for example, we're searching for public interview questions, and this is the page with the results. So whenever something appears here, it is called impression. Like at the bottom of this page, we see interview tips, applicant resources, careers, public, super, right? This is an impression. We have not yet clicked on it, but we got to see it. So this is the impression. So one thing Google measures is impressions. Let's get back here. And so in this diagram, what we see is for the last 3 months, this is in the filter above, it says for the last 3 months, these pages were seen by people 1.3 million times. These are impressions. And on the diagram, they are in purple.
Right. You can
Okay.
see there's cyclical, like every week. On the weekend is the lowest, like Saturday, Sunday, and then one day again goes up. And like we can see it goes up and up. And yeah, it's been growing for a while.
So it
Yeah,
already tells us something about people's psychology or behavior. People like to have some rest on weekends. They don't want so much to go and search for like Amazon interview questions on a weekend, right? But on Monday, we all are in a professional mood and we start like doing things for our professional activities. And the second number here is clicks. Out of all people with the purple who saw our links, how many of them clicked? This is the second number.
yeah. And there are also a couple more. CTR stands for click-through rate. It is the percentage of people who saw how many clicked. And position shows on which like which number this result appears. So like here it's like right at the top, but the average is 23. So if we have like 10 results per page, then 23 is on somewhere on the third page. So yeah, it's pretty good for us, I guess.
It's on average
Can
on
be
all
better.
queries. And here below, we can see which query, which specific query gets which results.
Yeah. So yeah, public interview questions, the one that I showed, shows at the very top. This also, but some others, like not as popular, will be on different pages.
Okay, so this is the first report we wanted to see. Like we saw company pages and visits. And now I would like, Sergey, for you to show us the next report, conversion to people who go to our who click and then who click the button start practicing after that, right? This is called funnel. So what you see, guys, here is the first step. Maybe Sergey, you can explain a little bit about the steps that we measure here. So page loads is the first one. It basically corresponds with clicks. Maybe some people get lost somewhere between, but basically it's the same. Page loads, how many people, when they clicked, the page loaded in their browsers. And the next step is where we are seeing our first discovery, our first matter of concern. Not too many people actually click the button start practicing when they are on the website, which is the step that is called login visited.
Yeah,
See,
likely they went just to look at the text on the page, but they aren't interested in it.
yeah, so the percentage, the rate of conversion rate, we call it, is you see at the bottom this number 195. It's about 2% conversion rate. Right, Sergey?
Right, yeah. So if they click on this button, which button?
Which is really difficult to find, this button.
Yeah, it's not on this, it's on the main page, yeah. So they click on start practicing, they are asked to log in. And yeah, this is this step, so they saw this page. And after that, the next step is they actually logged in, and it's a bit even less. So it was like 2%, and the next step is 0.7%. The next step after that, if whether they started practicing, then whether they recorded at least one answer and stopped recording. So yeah, it's funnel because like each next step is less and less from the previous ones.
Yeah, so one of the things when we built this funnel was why do we want to do something with the application to add additional resources, effort into developing something in the application itself? It doesn't make sense because our main bottleneck is right here at this step between the first and second step, right? This was our first discovery. It doesn't make sense for us to improve the application even further because we are losing people prior to that. Even before they proceed to the app, we are losing them in such a significant number. So this is the first discovery where if we haven't measured this, we would probably waste more and more resources into developing the app itself, while we would not be getting enough traffic to even justify these efforts. So let me get back to my presentation. This was our first really important discovery, that we're losing people even before they start practicing. What can we do about it? At this point, let me tell you about the data flow architecture, how all the data is organized. First, and Sergey will show us in a moment, every event is being tracked in the code, both on the app side and on the website. Then there is a middleware called Segment, which takes all the events when they happen and pushes these events into the database, which we store at Amazon Web Services. And then there is a tool, the reports you just saw were from this tool, Metabase it's called. It's a tool specifically for visualizing data. It takes the data from the database and visualizes it so that we can make our business decisions based on graphs and easily readable visualized information. So this is the data flow. All events are tracked, and that is how we do that in the code. Then this segment middleware takes those events as they happen and writes them into the database. And then Metabase takes the data from the database and visualizes it. Now let me ask Sergey. Sergey, do you have something to show us in the code, or shall I show the screenshots?
Yes, I can show it to you.
Yeah, so let's take a look how it looks like in the code. Then we will take a look at this middleware segment and at the metabase, okay? So your Skype, Sergey.
Okay, yeah, so here you see just some piece of code. This is front end, JavaScript. We use React framework, if that's relevant. So for tracking events, we just call one method. It's called track analytics event. So basically, like any button, any click by user, even if they scroll to a particular place in the page, we just put this call there to send analytics data. How this code looks, it just calls this analytics library, which comes from segment.io. So as Natalie was talking about, it's the middleware that collects this data and just does with it whatever we configured it to do. Yeah, the important part is the name of this event, and then there are just parameters. You can submit a lot of data, metadata corresponding to this event. Now, do I show how segment.io looks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is just like the dashboard. So you can configure a lot of sources and a lot of destinations. Mainly what is used here is JavaScript that comes from Mr. Simon, and it goes into our database. We host it on Amazon. Like everything that we host is on Amazon. And yeah, it goes into this database. What segment does is it receives the data from us and looks whether there is a table in this database, and if it's there, it just appends a line for this event, and if not, it automatically creates a table, which is nice because we don't have to create those tables manually.
Yeah, so this is really cool that this is what segments does for us. Whenever in the code, like whenever we do a new experiment in the code, we put these lines of code that Sergey just showed us. If it's a new type of event, you would just write it in the code. And segment, when the segment grabs that piece of code, it checks whether the table with this event name already exists. If it does, it just inserts a new record there. If it does not exist, it creates a new table for this event. So this is why this middleware is really convenient. It takes care of these things. And metabase, Sergey, right?
Okay, yeah, next, what we already seen was Metabase. Metabase is an open source tool. You can host it. If it hosted on your premises, it's free, but also is enterprise options. Yeah, it's a very nice tool for visualization of this data. So Metabase is connected to this database that we talked about. And yeah, you just, for instance, this funnel, for it, the data is just straight up SQL, but you aren't required to do that. If you don't know SQL, you can just click a lot of buttons. And yeah, so basically everything is a question metabase. Every graph, every table. So if you want to add a new visualization, you add it as a question.
Okay, so cool. Let me switch back to the presentation. Here we took a look at the code, at the segment, which is a middleware, and the metabase, which is a visualization tool. And what do we talk next? Yeah, these are same things that I already showed, that Sergey just showed us. The business insights, like when we ask questions to the database, which Metabase calls it ask a question. When we ask these questions, what business insights can we draw based on those answers? For us, in our case, it was that when we saw that huge drop in conversion from people who visit the page to people who actually start practicing, the conclusion, the obvious conclusion was, it looks like practicing for your upcoming job interview is not the primary need for our people. Then our next question was that we asked ourselves, so what is this real need, the primary need? And for that, we need to do some quick experiments and learn. So how do we do that? As Sergey just showed, we ask a question, and for that, of course, we have to do those experiments. And asking a question, depending, as just Sergey showed us, depending on your level of expertise, if you have never done anything working with a database, probably you would just go with a simple question option. But if you are more advanced, you can go with custom questions or even writing SQL native query, which I love doing. So the question that we decided to ask was, are people willing to engage with us? Because we know they come and they read information, they like what we have on those company pages, but are they willing to engage? Maybe if not by clicking start practicing, maybe they can engage in some other ways. So we decided to make an put up an experiment with that would help us answer this question. So now I will ask Sergey to show what was this experiment that we called quiz, and then what the data showed us as the result of this experiment, okay? So the experiment itself looks like...
Yeah, okay, so this is the set auto-generated page. So it has a bunch of experiments, and this one is in particular. So it's called a quiz, and you just have to select correct answer, I guess.
Yeah, so this was really simple. Just select what you think is the correct answer, because we were not doing this for any purpose other than just trying to gauge whether people are willing to engage with us somehow. And so what's the result, Sergey? What do we see with the data?
Yeah, so this stuff really not important, I guess, for us. What was important is that they were engaging with it, of course, and what do we collect and what we look at. We can see another funnel.
And
so
with this funnel, you see the huge difference, right? There is no such significant drop as to from 100% to just 2%. The drop here is to 40%. And can you, Sergey, explain what each step means here?
Yes, so the first step, again, page loads, that they open this page. The next step is that they scrolled down to this question, so they saw this on their screen. So yeah, 40% of total page views.
Scroll down to this section, right?
Right, and then the next one, that they answered at least one question. So the first one.
Yeah, so and this percentage, 14%, is 14 out of the page loads.
Yeah,
but
it's always first.
If we discard the people who never even saw this quiz, it becomes so much higher, right? So
Right,
of all the people who saw this quiz option, it's really like many of them clicked, right?
Yeah, out of 30,000, 11,000, so 1/3.
1/3 of people decided to engage with us.
Yeah.
Which means that the answer to our question that we were asking, the question was, are people willing to engage? Obviously, the answer was yes, people are willing to engage. So then we decided to take a deeper look into who are these people? Because with company pages, we have a huge number of people click on Amazon interview questions. But with Amazon, there are such a wide variability of who the professionals willing to work at Amazon may be. It may be warehouse employees, right? But it may also be like software engineers, product managers, people of that end. So we started thinking, how can we identify who most of these people are? We decided that the easiest would be to ask them, what is your like salary expectation? And based on that, we can make some assumptions who these people may be. And then let me ask Sergey to show the salary graph, the answer to this question.
Yeah, I can show it on the page because we already ended this experiment, but the results are, well, it looked like just like the previous experiment, just with options. Select the correct option, but the result look like this, and you can see what each data point means.
Yeah, and so what we see here is the majority of people chose option number one, which was number one between 35 and 55 K annually. So this is the majority of people, but we also had quite a number of people at point zero, right? Under 35. And then number two was also quite significant, between 55 and 80. So it shows that the majority of people coming to our company pages are people who are paid below 80,000 per year. So this is at least some assumptions we can make and into what kinds of positions these people may be looking for. Okay. So let me go back to my presentation, salary graph. The next question, and I'm skipping something here because we also did some more experiments. One of the most recent experiments was, are these people interested if we would offer them a personalized interview guide? We had some certain ideas of what we can do, but before we start working on the actual product, again, remember, as in the beginning, I was saying, why waste any significant effort and resources into developing something where we're not yet sure people would be interested in? We decided to gauge interest in this. So how we implemented this experiment was, I will ask Sergey to show us how it looks like, because it is still currently running, I guess, and what the data shows us. And then the A/B experiment that we're running on the pricing. It's not just A/B, it's more than two options. So to you, Sergey.
Right, so this experiment right on the same page, just a little bit above. Yeah, so
Even a little bit, yeah. So know what to expect. This is the beginning of this section. And we also tried visually, we tried several ways how to visualize this information on the page, how to present it. And we noticed that whenever it looked like a banner, people were skipping it completely. So we the people, we don't like any advertisements. So we just skip and ignore advertisements. This is how our brains are wired right now.
it's like a
But
reflex.
yeah, it's a reflex. But if the information looks just like the rest of the article, people are more likely to read it. And sorry for interrupting you, Sergey.
Yeah, so yeah, also this experiment starts with answer one of the questions, which position do you apply for? So you select that. The next step is you have to type in or paste in your job description. You can do that or skip that. And the last step is we offer.
Yeah, and the last step here is, it looks very much like real. It looks like you realistically would be clicking on this button and entering your credit card data. with the exception that nothing happens really. We're not asking for your credit card data because we assume that if you clicked this button, it means that most likely you are willing to pay. And we are not yet actually offering any product, so we are not yet actually gathering any payments. We are just gauging interest. How many people would click this button, would show that they are interested to buy, right? And when they click on that button, we say, hey, you guys, please send us an email, and then we will respond,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, an important part of this being called A/B tests, is that those tests look a bit different for different people. For instance, here we see the price 19.99, but different people may see like $1 or $50, and we also track that and check which prices people are ready to pay.
So can you show us the data then?
So yeah, I can start from price, I guess, if I talked about that. So yeah, obviously everyone clicks on $1, but
Not everyone, yeah, but many people are like
yeah,
easy, find it easy to click on this price.
yeah, but still they're a bit, even those who will to pay the whole $50 on this.
Yeah. So if you have heard this expression A/B testing, this is exactly an example of A/B test, although it's not just A and B, but it is A, B, C, D, E. It's A, B, C, D, E test, right? But the principle is A/B. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
And the
Yeah.
second one?
Also, yeah, here is a funnel. Also starts as page loads, and then who answered this first question and who
And
entered.
answered means who indicated their profession that they are looking to apply for, like engineering or sales, right?
Yeah, so basically they started engaging with this experiment,
Mm-hmm.
and then who pasted their job description, and then who clicked on this button.
Okay, so let me get back to my presentation. And then we started thinking, okay, so what else can we learn about our visitors? And this is the currently running, you saw that quickly with the quiz, the last question we added, which is not actually a question which can be right or wrong, but we just recently pushed it. We have not yet measured this. At least I have not yet seen the dashboard, but we are asking people how urgent is this for you? And so this is what we are currently trying to understand about our people. This is our way of having a dialogue with a cumulative user persona, so to say. We are asking a cumulative like population, hey guys, on average, how urgent is this for you on average? And so we're talking with this average user persona, right? Actually, I'm happy that we made it on time so that we have another 10 minutes for your questions and your comments. And if you have any great ideas, we are so happy to hear them. So with this, let me probably stop sharing for a moment and let's talk. Everyone, if you guys feel you want to say something, turn on your microphones and feel free to ask or comment, okay? Hi, Matt. Good to see you.
So when you do, I have a question. When you were showing the funnel and you were showing that, you need to focus on this specific area, right? Because people aren't making it to the next phase. How many experiments do you typically do? Or is there a certain percentage that you're trying to get it up to before you then start looking at the subsequent areas? Like how do you approach that?
Yeah, so when we identify the biggest roadblock, right? You are asking how much effort do we invest into mitigating this roadblock before we can proceed to the next roadblock? Yeah.
Yeah, how
Well,
do you know, like, when you're at the point where you're happy with it for the time being, and now you want to try to, you know, move people along for the
yeah.
rest of the, yeah.
So probably in our case, we have not yet resolved the biggest bottleneck because we are still trying to identify what the primary need is. But as to if we ask this question a little bit differently, how do you know you are ready to terminate the previous experiment and start running a new one, right? Probably a couple of weeks is enough, I guess. What do you think, Sergey? I think a couple of weeks is pretty much sufficient for gathering the data. There is no big chance that after a couple of weeks, the data going forward will be much different from what we have gathered. What do you
Yes,
think?
yes, I think it's just like with all statistics, you need significant number of cases of data to be able to say that this will look like this on any amount of data and won't significantly change. And then you just see that you won't receive any useful new information from that.
Probably a couple of weeks should be enough for running an experiment.
Interesting.
Yeah, another thing is we see that we have new ideas and that we can change something about this experiment, like add different steps to it, like to fine tune it, to gather new information. So for instance, for example, this experiment, the last one about personal sites, right now I'm working on modifying this experiment to add a form to it. Like right now you saw that you get to press a button and just send the email manually. But what I'm doing is that we'll be adding a form to it that you submit and it automatically sends an email to us. So it will be much better for user experience.
So in identifying user needs, there is another aspect that we have not covered here is there are real needs and there are perceived needs. This is also an interesting aspect which I have not yet found a solution to, but I'm like brainstorming with myself at this point. For example, I know that some of us cannot find a job because honestly, we are not qualified. I may be looking for a job of a like Scrum Master, but I may not be really qualified. Or something like I may be looking for a job of an executive assistant, but in fact, a hiring manager will find me unqualified. So this is the real need for me to be qualified or maybe to pivot to another position. But I may not perceive it as such. In my perception, I may think that my problem is that my resume is not well done. I may think that if I do my resume better, that will be the solution. So this is the difference between real need and perceived need. Unfortunately, my impression is from, guys, I meet quite a lot of people in our circles, people looking for jobs. In my view, what I see is quite a number of people are not qualified for the positions they are looking for. Because especially now in the remote work environment, you have to be efficient and productive. And quite a number of people are not really qualified. They may be lucky and they may land, but if not for luck, if it is just purely factual, they may never land the positions that they are looking for because they are not qualified. But not everyone sees it that way. The perceived need for many people would be, hey, if I can only find the right contact at the right company, that would help me. So their need in their eyes is, how do I network with the right people? This is what they think they need. Well, when in reality, even if you go and network with the right person, if you have nothing to say to that person, they will not be interested in you. But not always we are honest with ourselves, right? So, Matt, anything?
Yeah, I had a question. Sorry for joining a little late, but I'm sorry I missed some of this. It sounded like it was very interesting. But when I joined in, you were talking about something. I think it was around you had the funnel up that would narrow very quickly, and I think it had to do with people being interested in practice interviews, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you made, I think you made a statement that that was evidence then that people did not need to practice interviews or engaging with you on practice interviews because they didn't need it or it wasn't a priority is kind of how I interpret that comment. How do you know that is my question? Because I could perceive it to be that people aren't comfortable doing a practice interview, right, with, Mr. Simon per se. There's a behavioral aspect to this, I think, that, I don't know how the measures here that are collected here can get under, because to me, there has to be a level for something like that, a level of trust. And how do you establish that trust, or evidence of success, at least before someone jumps into what feels like a vulnerable situation?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have not probably exhausted all kinds of experiments to see whether we can do something better to get people start practicing. We have not exhausted all the options we can possibly. We have included testimonials on the homepage. That is one thing that probably increases level of trust. When we put together these company pages with a lot of information in them, we also noticed that the level of trust increased. Probably there are things we can do more, I agree. But yeah, this is a valid point. What do you think? What's your personal impression?
I think my personal impression is, there's a trust factor here, right? It's me, a human, working with a machine. But you never know what's, I'll say, inside the machine. Right? There's a kind of the unknown. And today, people talk about technology being fascinating and an enabler, but they also view it as Big Brother, being everywhere, watching everything. Right?
So just maybe, yeah, I don't say, I'm not saying I disagree with you, but at some point we ran an experiment where we suggested for people to schedule a free mock interview session with a real human.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how many people clicked on that?
Probably not many.
Not many, not many.
No.
Although it was a real human, it was myself. And it was explicitly, we were saying free mock interview session.
Okay. So here's another thought maybe to help with the trust. And I'm not a behavioral analyst and I'm not a user experience person, but just kind of using my own way of thinking is, is there an option or possibility of putting a clip, a video clip or something on there showing someone taking one of these interviews, and how, with just for 5 questions, a 1 to 2 minute, kind of clip, and then see what the outcome is. So people can get a more tangible feel, and experience of what it's going to be like.
Cool, the cool idea. I think Barbara Yusak here with our another team member Stuart are discussing and thinking about exactly this, right? And you're muted, Barbara.
I saw her facial expressions though.
I just sent Stuart an email after our meeting today mentioning the possible use of the video. Exactly what you said, Matt. Great minds.
There we go. Because I just saw something this morning on a PSG, and they talked about, different strengths in communicating, and, a picture is worth 1,000 words. A video is worth 1.8 million.
Wow.
Yeah, but
so that's an interesting, I thought, interesting dynamic. It may not be perfect science here, but it's an interesting dynamic.
It's just another observation I have is from PSG CNJ. Whenever there is a speaker, people come in quite significant numbers to listen to a speaker. But whenever there is an interactive interview preparation session, you have much less people coming to those sessions for some reason.
Yeah, and this thing I was talking to was, I think it was PSG Morris County, and it was actually an individual who was talking about the importance of telling a story. So it was about really, getting your message out, and, there's different senses, that you use, and visual is clearly a most powerful one. And even within visual, still, reading text versus seeing a picture versus seeing action, it increases exponentially.
Yeah, we will explore this for sure. Yeah. So Barbara, was it you or Jennifer? I heard someone wanted to.
It was me, Kathleen.
Kathleen, hi.
So I have to go back to what Matt first brought up about the trust level. So the other problem, the whole dynamic about the trust, is what is happening with this information afterward. So because now it's been recorded, this recorded information is now permanently fixed within whatever virtual realm that you have this stored in, right? And that is a concern, especially in a woke nation, the way we are right now. Every little word can be construed as being counterculture, counter whatever it is, when all you're trying to do is work out human communication, right? So I'm just putting that out there. A video is not going to help that either. The trust aspect is a major concern, especially now in the environment that we are in, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. It's not going to get better. So that aspect needs to be addressed somehow, and a video is not going to do it.
I still think there's an angle there, just figure out how to get people engaged. I think the idea is kind of interesting. All right, I hear what you're saying, Kathleen, and I agree with what you're saying to a great extent. I think that, because it's maybe hard doesn't mean it's not worth pursuing, because I think the idea is intriguing, right?
Right. But it's that trust aspect, right? I mean, you see it right now going on in our politics, right? Every little thing from going back to your high school years can be dredged up, right? And the young population is still trying to figure that one out, because they've grown up with all this technology, and they never thought twice about posting things on their social media pages, which later on can come back and actually severely damage them, right? And that is something they're going to have to reconcile with later. Okay. So I'm not saying, I mean, we're dealing with professionals here, right? We're not dealing with the young, impetuous, but even on a professional level, sometimes, you could say something which had a totally different meaning altogether, and you were trying to work it through and present it, and it got totally misconstrued. And if it's taken out of context, it can become something that has bloomed into whatever. So that's what I mean by the whole trust aspect. You have to somehow pull it back and, gain this trust that, hey, this is not something, that is going to be used for, whatever. This is a teaching tool.
Okay,
right?
Caitlin, yeah, I see your point. Thank you.
I agree. I just want to close the thought, because I do have to run to something, unfortunately. First in, first out, but last in, first out. So is I understand what you're saying, Kathleen, but I don't think this is necessarily in the public domain unless it intends to be in the public domain. So there's always that opportunity to express how this data will be information will be protected and managed. I think what's an important thing, through a privacy statement. I know you have a privacy statement on your site, Natalie. So, I think there's things to be aware of too, relative to, like the state of Illinois has a law about using biometrics, in a certain way, and getting consent before you. So those are just some of the plumbing that needs to probably be contemplated going forward, this kind of idea. But, I think it's a matter of, making sure people understand if it's in the public domain or if it's going to be privately protected.
Okay, so guys,
Jennifer had her hand raised for quite a while, but it's down now. So I don't know.
I just have a quick question. And my question is going back to this trust. I don't want to make it too lengthy, but the protected and the managed sites, what exactly, I haven't gone into the site myself to look at it in a while, but where are these recordings being deleted once you record it and you're like, well, I didn't like this one, how it sounded, and you go back and forth and you delete it? So I guess the concern is, you know, the protection and how it's being managed. So once you delete it, it's deleted, or I don't know how that works, Natalie. I just wanted to get an idea.
Yeah,
Nothing's ever gone.
yeah. So once you delete it, you delete it. But if you remember that first funnel that we showed, it showed that the problem happens even before people go to the app and see how it works, even
Okay.
before that. So the roadblock is even before that.
Even
We-
before.
Even
Okay.
before, even just to click this button, start practicing, people were not eager to click this button. But before you go to actually the application, only then you will see how it works, really, right?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. So
Once you go
the
to the
problem,
application, you can see exactly.
yeah. So this is at some point we were thinking, hey, maybe it has to do with people being concerned of the privacy and so. But the problem started even one step before that. This is why it is so important to not base your insights on just pure assumptions, but on data. This is why it is really important that I showed you that data showed that the problem starts even before that. You see?
Okay.
But
Thanks.
thanks for your input. I really appreciate. If your brain somehow keeps thinking and boiling even after the meeting is over, please make sure get your feedback to me. I really appreciate, guys, all your feedback. This is really important for us. Okay.
Thank you.
I think for me, when I first went to the site, I'm going to give a different perspective. You know, because somebody had posted about it and I wanted to check it out, went out there and said, okay, this looks cool, but I'm not ready to do an interview yet because I need to practice. I need to put my thoughts together. And that may be the reason why you see so many visitors not necessarily jumping into it, or people that like to passively go and listen to a speaker. But now when I have to practice, hey, do your elevator pitch or whatever, they're not prepared. So perhaps maybe even coming up with a mechanism where, you know, you kind of handhold people, you know, nervous about interviewing. Hey, it's easy. Why don't we take this, you know, one question at a time? And maybe each week you send everybody, here's another question that we want you to think about. And maybe you just practice one question and get people used to that dynamic. And so then when they have that repository of questions ready, then they can go in and do a more full interview practice.
That's a good feedback, really. I like it so much. That was my impression that it looks to me from what I know also at PSG, CNJ and other groups that not too many people their primary need is prepare for an upcoming job interview. Many people just don't get to that job interview. You have to get invited first. So your needs may be somewhere even before that, right? And like with Barbara Yusek, for example, when we started meeting with Barbara a few months ago, she was not yet sure which career path to choose. It's like definitely preparing for a job interview is not your immediate need if you are not yet defined as a.
Exactly.
And speaking to your other comment, you know, I think most of us would love to get honest feedback on our resume. It seems like everybody has an opinion. You should keep your resume to 2 pages. No, you can make it longer. You should include this. You should change it to this format. It gets so confusing, and especially even when you go on an interview or you apply for a job and somebody says, no, we don't feel you're qualified. Many times companies do not share the details of what it is about that. And it would be great if you could even get anonymous feedback, because I think most of us would like to know, what was it, you know? And if I'm not qualified, I'm not qualified, but sometimes it's something else. And it's just little tweaks that you can make to help, you know, seal the deal.
If I can say a few things here, the answer to how to best do your resume is always going to be, it depends. It depends who's reading it. You know, there's no set in stone. But what Natalie's talking about with like the A/B test and the funnel and all of that, you can apply that to your resume. So do it the way you think, the way somebody suggests, and send out a bunch. And if you get no feedback, make a change. Wait a couple of weeks, make a change.
It's
And
all trial
see-
and error. Yep.
Right, see if you get
We're
better
doing our own
feedback.
tests.
Experiments, exactly.
Exactly, exactly.
So I think it's a good idea if Barbara, you guys make contact with each other, get in touch, and maybe have a call and discuss, because it would be great to have someone join Team Mr. Simon. Marla has been with Mr. Simon for almost a year now, is it, Marla?
Oh, so it's about 9 months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
less than a year, but for
It's
9
been
months.
wonderful.
Yeah, but everyone learns at some point, and Mr. Simon is not there yet to offer a full-time position. So unfortunately, we will have to say goodbye to Marla, to Barbara, unfortunately for Mr. Simon, but lucky for you guys, of course. So we always need new people to help. So definitely let's explore this. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Sergey, for helping me.
Thanks.
And I hope to see you guys in 2 weeks or maybe earlier, right?
Great. I don't know if there was anything in the chat that needs to be, if anybody wants to save the chat, do it before you leave.
I just put a link to a survey. It just takes a few minutes, but it kind of ties into everything we've been thinking about. We'd love to know your thoughts. So.
Yeah, if you guys can go and it does not take long, right? Maybe 3 minutes. Yeah, if you can help us with this survey we're doing right now, that would really be great. Okay, it's in the chat. Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye bye.